Darius, we can use it. I could bring back the Vilkari, my home, my people. Let me try.
He paused, his voice dropping, firm as steel.
You think I don't want to save humanity? Absolute power is not the answer. Humans don't need relics to win. We've got will.
Welcome to the Vault of Tales, a treasure trove of science fiction stories. Today, we embark on the journey of Darius, Rook and Seraya Vilkari in the tale, Echoes of the Eon. In a galaxy teetering on the brink, a rogue mercenary and the last Vilkari survivor battle the ruthless Zalxar Empire over the Eon Shard. An ancient relic that could save or shatter reality itself. Testing humanity's grit against cosmic odds. Let's get started. Zalxar hung like a crimson scar on the fringes of the Orion galaxy. Its sky bled red, torn apart by plumes of smoke rising from scrap-fueled furnaces. This wasn't a haven for the faint-hearted, a lawless transit hub. It thrived where darkness and metal fused, a crucible of shadowy deals flickering under the unsteady glow of plasma lanterns. The air thrummed with the roar of engines, the clang of steel, and the desperate cries of the damned, all steeped in a sulphurous haze. Darius Rook strode through the rusted gates of the black market, his military boots kicking up clouds of red dust. Standing 6'1", his gray-streaked brown hair tangled beneath a worn hood, he scanned the crowd with steel-blue eyes that cut like a blade. Once a beacon of hope as a Union officer battling the Zalxar Empire, he was now just a mercenary scraping by, trading battlefield salvage to survive. In his hands, he hefted a crate of outdated gear, worn plasma rifles and mini-nuke grenades, his ticket to a few thousand credits from the smugglers waiting ahead. "You're late, Rook," a gravelly voice rasped from the shadows. Jax, the smuggler, stepped forward, his scarred face half lit by the faint green flicker of a dying lamp. "Hope your haul's worth it, or we'll be carving your heart out for a trophy." Darius smirked, a cold, mirthless twist of his lips. "Check it yourself. Don't like it? Try taking my heart. See who's still breathing after." He dropped the crate with a sharp metallic thud, the sound echoing like a challenge. But before Jax could crack the lid, a scream ripped through the air. The crowd parted like a wound, revealing a knot of slavers dragging a prisoner onto the auction platform at the market's heart. She was unlike anything Darius had ever seen, not human, not quite alien in the usual sense. Her skin shimmered silver green, liquid metal catching the light, her eyes blazed in the gloom, and long white hair whipped in the hot wind. Seraya Vilkari, a name you'd learn later, but for now, just a mystery bound in cold chains. 30,000 credits for this one, a slaver bellowed. Yanking her chain hard, Seraya stumbled but didn't break. She snapped her head up, her glowing eyes fierce, and shouted a phrase in a tongue no one grasped. No one, except Darius. Anakara Vel Shera, the words stabbed into his mind like a dagger. He'd heard them before, back in the shattered system, where his squad was butchered by Zalxar forces. The memory hit hard, comrades screaming, warships erupting in flames, and him left for dead amid the wreckage. A faint voice had whispered those same words from the ruins, haunting him ever since. Instinct screamed she wasn't just another captive. Before he could process it, the air trembled. 3 Zalxar warriors burst into the market, towering figures with ash-gray skin and eyes glowing red like embers. The crowd scattered in panic. "Hand over the female," one roared, its energy soared, hissing with menace. Jax spun toward Darius, eyes darting. "Rook, this ain't your fight. Get out before they torch the whole place." But Darius didn't budge, his gaze locked on Seraya, then flicked to the advancing Zalxar. His hand crept to the plasma pistol at his hip. "Not my fight, huh?" he muttered under his breath. "Then why'd I feel like I'm about to step into a damn war?" The decision came like lightning. He drew his pistol and fired, a single shot that turned the nearest slaver's head into a burst of blue flame. The crowd erupted in chaos, smoke and fire flaring as Darius charged forward. With a flick of his energy dagger, he severed Seraya's chains. She collapsed into his arms, breathless, her piercing gaze meeting his. "Run," he barked, hauling her through the thickening haze. Plasma blasts and Zalxar roars thundered behind them. They bolted for the Ravager. His battered old patrol ship docked at the nearby landing pad. As the hatch slammed shut, Darius glanced through the viewport, catching the silhouette of a Zalxar warship looming against the blood-red sky. "Welcome to hell," he said to Seraya, his voice rough as gravel. "Hope you're worth me sticking my neck out like this." The Ravager's hatch slammed shut behind Darius with a metallic clang that rang like a final warning. He hurled himself into the pilot's seat, hands flying across the scratched, battle-worn console. Beyond the clouded viewport, the Zalxar warship loomed over Zatara's blood-red sky, a hulking predator. Its obsidian hull aglow with the crimson pulse of energy cannons. Seraya clung to the co-pilot's chair, her breaths ragged, those luminous eyes sweeping the cramped, rust-streaked cockpit. "Hope you're worth risking my neck for," Darius muttered, his gravelly voice still echoing the words he'd tossed her back on Zatara. He slammed the throttle forward, and the Ravager's engines roared to life, shuddering as if they might tear apart at the seams. "We've got company," Seraya said, her tone icy yet trembling. She tugged aside her tattered cloak, revealing a glinting object tucked within, a small crystal pulsing with a faint, eerie blue light. "This is the Eon Shard, an artifact that bends space and time. They want it, and they won't stop until they have it." Darius shot the crystal a sidelong glance, then snapped his focus back to the controls. "Space, time, sounds like a mess I'd rather not touch." But before he could press her further, a dry, sardonic voice crackled through the ship's speakers. "Zalxar warship at 3,000 kilometers in closing fast. Survival odds, 0.03%. Good luck, Captain." That was Rusty, the Ravager's ancient Union-era AI assistant, ever fond of grim predictions delivered with a smirk. "Shut it, Rusty," Darius snapped, yanking a lever hard. A deafening blast rocked the cabin as the Zalxar ship opened fire. Crimson plasma bolts slashing through the void behind them. "Hold on, girl. Can you handle this? 'Cause I'm about to pull the dumbest stunt of my life." He didn't wait for Seraya's answer. Fingers danced over the console, punching in coordinates for an FTL jump faster than light. Reckless, uncharted, destination. The Ghost Belt, a cursed stretch of space where time twisted and lost ships drifted like phantoms. The FTL drive whined, a blinding white flash flooded the viewport, and the Ravager plunged into the abyss. As the glare faded, the view shifted. The Ghost Belt sprawled before them, a cosmic graveyard. Hundreds of ancient hulks floated in the dark, their rusted shells wrapped in shimmering dust clouds. Time didn't play by the rules here. The ship's chronometer flickered wildly, speeding up then stalling without reason. "Did we lose them?" Seraya asked, her voice taut with strain. But before Darius could respond, a faint signal buzzed from the console, a weak, keening hiss, like a whisper from beyond the grave. He tweaked the radar, and an image snapped into focus, a massive derelict, its hull etched with strange runes, drifting just a few kilometers away. "Wanna take a look?" he said, half joking, half curious. Seraya nodded, her gaze locked on the Eon Shard as if it were calling her name. They anchored the Ravager, suited up in battered space gear, and crossed into the wreck. Inside, horror awaited. Two bodies sprawled on the floor, a tall man with gray-brown hair, a woman with silver-green skin, Darius and Seraya, but from some near future, their throats slid by a mysterious gash. "Rusty, explain this," Darius growled into his comms. "Insufficient data, Captain," the AI crackled back. "Maybe time's screwing with us out here." Seraya knelt, her trembling hand lifting a shimmering fragment from her own corpse, another piece of the Eon Shard. But as her fingers brushed it, her eyes rolled white, and she collapsed, whispering, "Darius, I saw you die by my hand." He hauled her up, his expression darkening. "If you're planning to kill me, at least wait till the Zalxar are off our tail." But deep down, he felt it, a crack forming between them, a shadow cast by whatever this place had dredged up. The Ghost Belt wasn't just a refuge. It was the opening salvo of a nightmare he couldn't yet name. The Ravager's cockpit glowed dimly, its air still thick with the acrid tang of scorched metal from their desperate flight off Zatara. Darius stood at the console, fingers curled around the jagged fragment of the Eon Shard Seraya had plucked from that eerie wreck in the Ghost Belt. Her whispered words, "Darius, I saw you die by my hand," clawed at his mind like a chilling prophecy. He glanced over at her, hunched in the corner, her luminous eyes fixed on the small, pulsing crystal in her grip. A rift had opened between them, and he could feel it, sharp and real as the death stalking them beyond these walls. "Don't stare at me like I'm about to gut you," he said, his voice rough as sandpaper, trying to cut through the stifling tension. "I'm not dead yet, and I'm not giving you the chance to try." Seraya didn't reply, just tightened her hold on the Eon Shard. Outside the viewport, the Ghost Belt stretched on like an endless nightmare. Ancient ships drifted in the black, their rusted husks shrouded in glittering stardust, forgotten tombs adrift in the void. Time here was a trickster. The ship's chronometer jittered wildly, racing forward one moment, freezing the next. Darius bent to check the FTL drive, wrenching tight a leaking fuel line, when a sudden sound pierced the silence, a deep, frigid voice crackling from the old radio. "The balance of reality cannot be broken." It rumbled like something ancient, a machine buried beneath centuries of dust. Darius flinched, his hand freezing mid-motion. He flicked on the radio, hunting for the signal source, but only static hissed back. "Rusty, you catch that?" he barked. "Unclear, Captain," the AI's voice buzzed through, laced with its usual sardonic edge. "Could be interference from the belt, or maybe someone's chatting us up from the other side of the grave." "Odds on that, 12%. Darius smirked, but his eyes darkened. "I don't buy ghosts, but I'd bet my last credit this ties back to her damn crystal." He turned to Seraya, his tone hardening. "Spill it, what's the Eon Shard? And why Zalxar ready to burn the galaxy down to get it?" Seraya lifted her head, her eyes flaring in the gloom. "It's the legacy of the Vilkari, my people," she began, her voice low but weighted with history. "Thousands of years ago, we were its guardians, a device that warps space and time. But power like that comes at a cost. My ancestors wielded it to forge an empire, until it tore reality apart and wiped us out. I'm the last one left." Darius frowned, tapping a finger on the pilot's chair. "So why keep it, if it's that dangerous? Why not smash it and be done?" "Because I can't," Seraya shot back, her voice quaking. "It's our last shot against Zalxar. But I'm warning you, Darius, this thing's more deadly than anything you've ever faced." The air grew heavy between them, a storm brewing in the silence. But Darius had no time to dwell. A distant boom echoed through the hull. The Zalxar warship had sniffed out their trail in the belt. "Rusty, fire up the engines," he snapped, lunging for the pilot's seat. "We need to haul ass before they turn this ship into scrap." "Where to?" Seraya asked, rising, her hands still clutching the Eon Shard. "Omegan Station," Darius replied, eyes locked on the radar. "Got an old contact there, Karen. If luck's on our side, he'll buy intel on this thing and get us out of this godforsaken mess." The Ravager trembled as the FTL drive hummed back to life, rocketing them out of the Ghost Belt's grasp. But in Darius's mind, that cryptic voice lingered, a warning from a distant past, a hint of some ancient force watching from the shadows. The Eon Shard wasn't just a prize, it was a key. And whatever it unlocked was closing in fast. The Ravager tore free of the Ghost Belt, its FTL engines howling like a wounded beast, leaving behind the cryptic whispers and spectral husks of the past. Darius slumped in the pilot's chair, eyes locked on the radar, the echo of his last words to Seraya still ringing. "If luck's with us, Karen'll get us out of this damn mess." But beneath his steely resolve, doubt smoldered like a dying ember. Doubt about the Eon Shard, and the silver-skinned woman clutching it beside him. Omegan Station loomed ahead, a colossal slab of metal spinning lazily among the stars. Massive mechanical arms stretched from its core, anchoring dozens of freighters and sleek gunships. Neon lights, green and red, flickered across its surface, painting a scene of bustling chaos laced with danger. This was a place that devoured the weak and kept even the strong on their toes. Darius led Seraya through the main hatch, his boots pounding the steel deck. The crowd, a roiling mix of smugglers, mercenaries, and oddities from across the galaxy, parted as he cut a path to a shadowed corner. There, Karen waited, a wiry info broker with tangled silver hair and a crooked, predatory grin. "Rook," he rasped, voice like a rusty hinge. "Thought you bought it back in the shattered system." Memories crashed over Darius like a tidal wave. Years ago, pinned down by Zalxar forces, he'd watched his squad die in a storm of smoke and blood. Karen, a freelance pilot then, had dragged him from the wreckage, risking his own hide. That grudging trust was born there, though Darius knew Karen never moved a muscle without something to gain. "I need you to buy intel," he said, his tone hard as iron. "This is worth more than your miserable life." He nodded at the Eon Shard in Seraya's hands. Karen's brow arched, greed flashing in his eyes. "Let me see it. If it's legit, I'll find a buyer and scrub you off Zalxar's scopes." But as he leaned in to inspect it, a furtive glint crossed his face. One Darius missed. Karen was cornered. His family, stashed on some backwater rock, would burn if he didn't sell them out. Less than 10 minutes later, the air quaked, the market's steel doors blew inward, and Zalxar soldiers stormed through, ash-skinned brutes with blazing red eyes, energy weapons whining in their fists. "Hand over the Eon Shard," one bellowed, his voice a jagged crack of stone. The crowd scattered in a frenzy, gunfire and screams blending into a haze of smoke and chaos. "Karen, what the hell?" Darius roared, yanking his plasma pistol free. But the broker recoiled, his face pale as death. "I had no choice, Rook," Karen shouted, vanishing into the mob. The fight erupted like a supernova. Darius dropped 2 Zalxar with precise shots, blue plasma ripping through the air. Seraya moved like a phantom, her energy dagger plunging through another's chest in a flash of silver. But the enemy swarmed too thick. A plasma bolt grazed Darius's shoulder, blood splattering the deck. Seraya took a hit to the leg, collapsing with a stifled groan. "Rusty, save our asses," Darius yelled into his comm. Outside, the Ravager answered. The ship's autocannons blazed to life, micro-nuke rounds tearing through the Zalxar ranks in fiery bursts. Darius hauled Seraya toward the ship, their bodies streaked with blood and ash. As the hatch sealed behind them, a coded message blinked onto the screen. "Helios Prime is the key." Darius gripped the controls, his gaze turning cold as steel. "Karen, next time I see you, you're a dead man," he growled under his breath. The Ravager surged into the starry dark, leaving Omegan's betrayal in its wake. The Ravager sliced through the star-strewn dark, bearing the scars and sting of betrayal from Omegan. Darius sat rigid in the cockpit, hands clamped around the controls, blood still seeping from the gash on his shoulder onto the deck below. The coded message, "Helios Prime is the key," blinked insistently on the screen. But trust was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. Not after Karen, across from him. Seraya perched, her leg hastily wrapped in a torn rag, her glowing eyes locked on the Eon Shard. The air between them hung heavy, a storm brewing on the horizon. "Rusty, dig through the Omegan data," Darius ordered, his voice a hoarse rasp. "Find anything pointing us to Helios Prime." "Processing, Captain," the AI replied, its usual sarcasm muted this time. "Got a hit. Coordinates buried in Karen's files. Nixura, a dead star system. No life signs, but there's an ancient energy signature. Ties to the Eon Shard. 87% probability." Darius flicked his gaze to Seraya. "Nixura, ring any bells?" She didn't speak, just gave a faint nod. The Ravager veered off course, engines keening as they hurtled toward the lifeless system. When they touched down, Nixura unfolded like a relic of a forgotten age. A gray, ash-choked sky loomed overhead, thick with radioactive haze, while the shattered towers of a once great civilization stood as ghosts amid the desolation. Wind howled through broken stone columns, carrying the faint whispers of millions of vanished souls. Darius stepped out, plasma pistol in hand, with Seraya trailing behind, clutching the Eon Shard like a talisman. They entered a colossal structure half sunk in red sand. Inside, Seraya spotted a device, a spherical hunk of metal etched with cryptic runes. "This holds the Vilkari's memories," she murmured, slotting the Eon Shard into its core. The machine shuddered, and the pitch-black chamber flared to life. A holographic vision burst forth, vivid as reality itself. Vilkari warriors, their silver-green skin glinting, stood amid cloud-wreathed cities suspended in the sky. They wielded the Eon Shard, bending space to craft an empire, twisting time to crush their foes. But then, reality fractured. Black fissures spider-webbed across the heavens, swallowing the sky, shredding the planet apart. Screams echoed, then silence fell as the image snuffed out, leaving Darius and Seraya in a deathly hush. "This is what I told you," Seraya said, turning to him, her voice trembling. "The Eon Shard isn't a weapon, it's a curse. If we use it, this galaxy will crumble, just like my home did." Darius met her gaze, his eyes unyielding. "And if we don't, Zalxar will torch everything I've ever fought for. I won't let humanity die because of your fear." He stepped forward, reaching for the machine as if to reclaim the shard. Seraya blocked him, her hands shaking. "You don't get it. I lost everything to this thing. Do you want humanity to share that fate?" "You think I just give up?" Darius roared, his voice booming through the ruined hall. "Humans don't survive by running. We fight, we figure it out." The clash ignited, but before another word could spill, a specter materialized, a hazy silhouette, like an ancient AI, hovering in the air. Its voice, cold and hollow, echoed the warning from the ghost belt: "Reality does not forgive." Then it dissolved, leaving them steeped in tense silence. Darius turned away, gripping his pistol tighter. "Back to the ship, we're heading to Helios Prime. I'll find answers, whether you're on board or not." But deep inside, that phantom had planted a seed of doubt, and Nyxera was only the first glimpse of darker truths lurking ahead. The Ravager carved a silent path through the void, heavy with the weight of Nyxera's revelations. Darius gripped the controls in the cockpit, his cold gaze fixed on the nav screen. His last words to Seraya: "I'll find answers, whether you're with me or not," hanging between them like a gauntlet thrown down. The AI specter and Vilkari memories had sown seeds of doubt in his gut. But this wasn't the time to falter. The coded message from Omegan, "Helios Prime is the key," was his last thread of hope. Seraya sat beside him, clutching the Eon Shard, its faint glow mirrored in her luminous eyes against the console's dim light. Helios Prime emerged as the Ravager slowed, a once thriving human colony now reduced to rubble under Zalxar's iron grip. Towering buildings lay in shards, smoke curling from charred residential blocks, while above, Zalxar warships hovered like steel leviathans, their engines casting a blood-red glare across the scarred earth. This wasn't home anymore, it was a killing field. "The Union data vault's at the center," Darius said, his voice hard as tempered steel. "If that message holds water, we'll figure out how to fire up the Eon Shard there. You ready?" Seraya nodded, though her eyes brimmed with unease. "But what if I'm right, Darius? What if it destroys everything? Then it's on me," he shot back, checking his plasma pistol's charge. "But I'm not letting Zalxar win without a fight." They landed the Ravager amid a ruined sector, tucked behind crumbled concrete walls. The plan was straightforward: infiltrate, activate the shard, turn the tide. But Helios Prime offered no warm welcome. As they neared the data vault, a squat tower with thick steel doors, the air shuddered. From the shadows stepped Warlord Kylus, a towering behemoth over 7 feet tall, his ash-gray skin stark against eyes that burned red like molten slag. Flanking him were dozens of Zalxar warriors, their energy weapons humming with lethal intent. "Karen was right," Kylus rumbled, his voice a grinding avalanche. "You humans are fools, rats scuttling straight into the trap." Darius cursed under his breath. "Karen, You bastard. Omegan's betrayal clicked into place, not just a sellout, but a beacon for Zalxar to hunt them down. Before he could react, an energy net lashed out from Kailas's hand, ensnaring Seraya. She screamed, the Eon Shard slipping from her grasp and rolling toward Darius. He dove for it, but a plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, forcing him back with a hiss of pain. Run, Darius, Seraya yelled as Kailas dragged her toward him. But he didn't bolt, not yet. Rusty, do something, he snarled into his comm. Survival odds, next to 0. The AI crackled back, then added, but I'm not letting you die alone. Captain, the Ravager roared to life outside, surging forward and plowing into the Zalxar ranks. A deafening explosion followed as Rusty detonated the ship's reactor, a blinding white flash swallowing scores of warriors in a storm of fire and smoke, a fleeting shield of chaos. Darius seized the moment, sprinting into the cover of a nearby alley. The Eon Shard clenched in his fist. He'd escaped by a hair, but Kailas's bellow chased him. You can't run forever. Human, crouched behind a shattered wall. Darius sucked in ragged breaths, blood dripping from his old wound. Seraya was captured, Rusty was gone, and he was alone. Yet fear didn't cloud his eyes, only a blazing fury. I'll come back for you, Seraya, he vowed, his voice a low growl, a promise etched into humanity's core. Even if I have to rip this galaxy apart, I won't let them win. Darius crouched behind a shattered wall on Helios Prime, his breaths coming in sharp, labored gasps. The Eon Shard gripped tight in his fist. His vow, I'll come back for you, Seraya, still blazed in his chest, undimmed by the smoke rising from the Ravager's smoldering wreckage in the distance. Rusty was gone, the ship reduced to a blackened heap, and Seraya was in Kailas's clutches. But Darius didn't break. Humanity didn't bend that easily. He checked his plasma pistol, 3 rounds left, then slipped through the ruined alleys. Hunting a lifeline in this hellscape, a faint signal pulsed on his battered comms unit. The coded message from Omegan flared again. Helios Prime is the key. Find Varan, underground. Darius's brow furrowed. Someone had guided him here, and now they were pointing the way. With no other options, he traced the lead, a hidden hatch beneath the debris, descending into a secret bunker carved deep beneath Helios Prime's surface. The rusted steel door groaned open, revealing a shadowed chamber lit only by the faint blue flicker of computer screens lining the walls. At its center stood a man, Drive, Varan, lean and weathered, his silver hair a tangled mess, eyes peering through cracked spectacles. Darius Rook, he said, his voice low but steady. I figured you'd be dead up there by now. But humans are stubborner than I give him credit for. Who are you? Darius growled, leveling his pistol at Varan. And why should I trust you after Karen fed me to Zalxar? Varan raised his hands, calm as stone. I'm the one who sent the message from Omegan. And I know the Eon Shard, worked on it with Seraya's mother. Dr. Velnara, her name stopped Darius cold, his gun dipping slightly. Varan pressed on, his tone grave. You think it's a weapon, but you're dead wrong. It's a reality stabilizer, built by the Vilkari to keep this galaxy from collapsing. Trigger it the wrong way, though. He paused, gesturing to a screen projecting a simulation. A space-time rupture erupted, tearing planets apart, swallowing stars, leaving only a black void in its wake. It'll erase the whole damn galaxy, Varan said, his eyes shadowing. Velnara warned me before Zalxar cut her down. Now Kailas wants to use it, no matter the cost. Darius stared at the Eon Shard in his hand, its crystalline glow shimmering like a caged universe. Then why not smash it from the start? He asked, suspicion lacing his words. 'Cause it ain't that simple, Varan replied. He pulled a small device from the table, a black crystal etched with glyphs. This is the kill code. Pair it with the shard, and you can shatter the artifact. But the catch, he hesitated, locking eyes with Darius. The energy release might kill you. Or worse, drag you into some other dimension. Silence swallowed the bunker. Darius clenched the shard tighter. Memories flooding back, comrades falling in battle. humanity crushed under Zalxar's heel. I don't care about the cost, he said, his voice low and unyielding as steel. Seraya's with Kylus. If he cracks this thing open first, it's over. You got a map to their base? Varan nodded, handing him a locator device. You're a textbook human, reckless to the point of insanity. Maybe that's why you've made it this far. He offered a faint, weary smile, though worry lingered in his gaze. Darius turned toward the exit, boots scuffing the floor. I didn't survive this long to run, he muttered, giving his pistol one last check. I'll save Seraya. And I'll stop Kylus, even if I have to burn Helios Prime to ash. That's the human way. The door thudded shut behind him, leaving Varan in the dark, while ahead lay a battle to decide the galaxy's fate. The bunker door on Helios Prime slammed shut behind Darius, the metallic clang echoing like a final dare. I'll save Seraya. And I'll stop Kylus, even if I have to burn Helios Prime to ash. He'd told Varan, and now that vow was the only flame guiding him through the dark. The Ravager was gone, lost with Rusty, leaving him with a near-empty plasma pistol, 3 shots, and the Eon Shard tucked in his jacket. But Darius Rook didn't need a fleet or an army. He was human, and humans clawed their way through hell even when the odds hit rock bottom. Helios Prime's surface was a wasteland of war. The remnants of humanity's colony lay scattered amid smoke and flame, red sand swirling in the blistering wind. Zalxar warships loomed overhead, their engines bleeding crimson light across the ground like spilled blood. Darius moved through the shadows, pistol in hand, eyes scanning the Zalxar horde ahead, dozens of ash-skinned warriors, their energy weapons buzzing, guarding the main base where Kylus lurked. One man against an army? Even Rusty would have laughed in his face, but fear wasn't an option. He spotted a small nuclear reactor, a relic of the old power grid. Abandoned near the base, a reckless plan sparked. If I can't outmuscle him, he muttered, I'll outsmart him. He crept to the reactor, pried off the safety panel, and danced his fingers over the controls. One plasma round slammed into the core, and he bolted back, counting down in his head. 3, 2, 1. The blast shook Helios Prime to its bones. A searing white fireball erupted, its shockwave hurling Zalxar troops skyward, thick dust choking the air and blinding their radars for precious minutes. Darius charged through the haze, a ghost in the wreckage, slipping into the base through a breached side entrance. Zalxar roars thundered behind him, but he was inside, mere steps from Kylus. He found Seraya shackled to a control platform, the Eon Shard slotted into a hulking machine pulsing with erratic blue light. Kylus towered there, his red eyes blazing, hands tweaking the device. You're too late, human, he snarled. This galaxy's mine. Darius didn't waste breath on words. 2 final shots from his pistol dropped the guards in bursts of blue flame. And he lunged, slicing Seraya's chains with his energy dagger. She fell into his arms, gasping, Darius, he's activated it. She pointed at the Eon Shard, now swirling with black tendrils of energy. Her eyes rolled white, a vision from the ghost belt flooding back, the galaxy dissolving. Stars shattering, the void swallowing all. If it finishes, nothing survives, she cried, her voice breaking. Darius yanked her up, but Seraya grabbed his arm, desperation in her gaze. Darius, we can use it. I could bring back the Vilkari, my home, my people. Let me try. He froze, staring at her, then at the shard. His voice dropped, firm as forged steel. You think I don't want to save humanity? But absolute power's not the answer. You saw Nixera, the Vilkari torched themselves with this thing. If we use it, we're no better than Kylus. Seraya wavered, tears streaking her silver-green cheeks. But it's all I have left. We've got each other, Darius said, his hands clamping her shoulders. And I won't let this galaxy die on blind hope. Humans don't need relics to win. We've got will. In that heartbeat, Kylus's roar cut through the dark. He wasn't done, and the Eon Shard was spiraling out of control. Darius knew it. Time was bleeding out, and the real fight was only just igniting. Helios Prime's central city quaked under the Eon Shard's unleashed power. Black tendrils of energy spiraling from the massive machine Kylus had set in motion. Darius stood firm, hands gripping Seraya's shoulders, his eyes ablaze with resolve after his declaration. Humans don't need relics to win, we've got will. But Kylus's roar from the shadows sliced through the moment, yanking them back to a brutal reality. Time was slipping away, and the final showdown had begun. Darius shoved Seraya back, drawing his energy dagger, the last weapon left after his plasma pistol ran dry. Before him, Kylus emerged from the smoke, a towering colossus over 7 feet tall, ash-gray skin stark against eyes glowing red like molten steel. He hefted a long energy sword, its blade hissing as it cleaved the air. Pathetic humans, Kylus bellowed, his voice thundering over the radiant pillars bursting from the Eon Shard's console. You think you can stop me? This galaxy will kneel to Zalxar. Darius smirked, a cold, fearless twist of his lips. You talk too much, Kylus. Let me show you just how weak we are. He charged, not with brute force, but with cunning. Kylus swung his sword, but Darius rolled aside, his dagger slashing a line across the Warlord's armored leg. Sparks flew, yet Kylus didn't flinch. He kicked back, sending Darius crashing into a shattered steel wall. Pain seared through him, but Darius hauled himself up, blood trickling from his mouth. Stubborn little pest, Kylus taunted, stalking closer. You're nothing but dust before me. He raised his sword for the killing blow. But Darius had seen it, a small overload device near the Eon Shard's console. Exposed wires spitting sparks, a perfect trap, and he'd lure this monster right into it. Seraya, get ready to run, he shouted, then bolted toward Kylus, feinting a head-on strike. Kylus laughed, a guttural roar, and slashed downward, but Darius ducked, sliding beneath the blade, and hurled his dagger straight into the device. The blade struck true, igniting a flare of sparks. Playing clever, are we? Kylus snarled, lunging after him. Too late, a sharp explosion ripped from the device, its shockwave slamming Kylus to the ground, his sword skittering away. Darius pounced, pinning him with every ounce of strength, hands throttling the Warlord's gray throat. Humans don't need muscle to win. He gritted out, we've got brains. Kylus thrashed, his red eyes fading, until a final fist to the skull ended him. Victory was fleeting. In his dying rasp, Kylus chuckled, a weak hand brushing the console. You lose. A chain reaction erupted from the Eon Shard. Blue light turned pitch black. Energy vortices spreading, tearing at the space around it. Seraya rushed forward, clawing at the connections, but a surge flung her back, crashing her to the floor with a scream. Darius, I can't stop it. He sprinted to her side. Staring at the shard, black cracks spider webbed across its surface, the air trembling as if ready to shatter. Varan's words echoed, the kill code can break it, but it'll cost your life. No other way out. He pulled the black crystal, the kill code, from his jacket. Meeting Seraya's gaze one last time. Give it to me, she cried, staggering up, tears streaking her silver-green face. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Darius said, his voice low but unshakable. Humans don't run from fate, we face it. If I don't, this galaxy's dust, you know that. He stepped to the console, hands clutching both the Eon Shard and the kill code. Darius, Seraya whispered, but she didn't stop him. He turned, flashing a faint smile. Find a way to survive. Seraya, that's your fight. Then he triggered the kill code. A blinding white light erupted from his hands, engulfing everything. Kylus was beaten, but the price of victory hung unanswered, and the galaxy held its breath for the final verdict. The Eon Shard's control room shuddered violently, black fissures snaking across the crystal in Darius's hands as the kill code's blinding white light erupted like a final decree. He'd triggered it, embracing the price Varan had warned of, his life, maybe his very soul, to save the galaxy from the ruin Kylus had unleashed. Seraya stood mere feet away, her silver blue eyes wide with despair. "Darius," she screamed, but the shard's deafening shriek swallowed her voice. "Stand down, Seraya," he said, his tone low yet cutting through the chaos. "This is the only way." His hands tightened around the Eon Shard in the kill code, white light melding with the dark vortices swirling from the artifact, birthing a miniature black hole at the rune's heart. Space around him warped, twisting like a shattered mirror. Radiant pillars from the console sucked into the churning void. "Darius, no." Seraya lunged, reaching for him, but a surge of energy flung her back. She slammed into the steel floor, breath heaving, stealing one last look at him. He turned, his gaze sharp yet strangely soft. "Survive, Seraya," he said, his voice piercing the emptiness. "Humanity's not done yet, you're proof of that." Then it all detonated. A colossal explosion engulfed Helios Prime, white light spilling outward, consuming the Zalxar base, the crumbled towers, and Darius's silhouette. The tiny black hole spiraled into the crimson sky, dragging light, dust, and jagged metal into an endless abyss. But then, it collapsed. No void remained, only vibrant ribbons of color, red, blue, gold, bursting forth like the souls of the Vilkari, freed after millennia of captivity. Helios Prime trembled one last time, then fell into a deathly stillness. Seraya awoke amid the wreckage, body aching but alive. A small Union escape pod lay nearby, its engines humming faintly. She crawled toward it, blood and grit caking her skin, clutching a torn scrap of Darius's jacket she'd snatched from the floor. Climbing aboard, she activated the comms, her voice quivering. "Darius, you did it. But why'd it have to be you?" The pod lifted off, piercing Helios Prime's atmosphere. Through the viewport, Seraya saw the planet reduced to a charred scar, yet the galaxy beyond stood intact, stars still burned, planets still spun. Darius had been right, he'd stopped the Eon Shard from unmaking it all. His final words echoed in her mind, an undying mantra. "Strength doesn't come from weapons, but from the choices we dare to make." Tears broke free, not from grief, but from the lifeline his sacrifice had forged for her, for the galaxy. As the pod drifted into deep space, a weak signal blinked on the console. Seraya wiped her eyes, tracing its source. A charred fragment of the Ravager, Darius's old ship, floated among the stars. Just a few kilometers off, her pulse raced as she steered closer. The debris was small, scorched black, but nestled within was an old recorder, still functional. Seraya's trembling fingers hit play, and Darius's voice crackled through, rough yet warm. "If I got this wrong, find me at the galaxy's edge." The recording cut to static, but it jolted her still. Was he alive, or was this just a last whisper before the void claimed him? She couldn't tell. Yet in her chest, a spark of hope flared, small, but fierce, like the humanity Darius embodied. The escape pod surged forward, charting a course for the Orion galaxy's rim. Seraya gripped his jacket scrap, her eyes blazing through the dark. "If you're out there, Darius," she murmured, "I'll find you, and we'll face whatever's next together." The galaxy turned on, unbroken, and their story, humanity's story, was far from over.